Alrighty, I am here with Sadie Williams. How you doing, Sadie?
I'm good. How are you, Landon?
I'm doing well. Glad to have you on. We've been working together a little bit more lately, and so we're going to talk about Care for Every Family, CarePortal. But before we get into that, who is Sadie Williams? Are you from Wichita? What's your story?
So I was born and raised here in Wichita, and this is actually where I met my husband. He's not from Kansas. He's from Oklahoma, but Wichita has always been home for me, and so I love this city. We often refer to it as a boomerang city, right? Everyone who grows up here is like, man, I can't wait to get out of Wichita. And as soon as you get a taste of outside of Wichita, you're like, man, I really miss home.
Always. Yeah, for sure. What high school did you go to?
I graduated from South High.
South High, okay. Mm-hmm. I'm always curious to hear like where people went when they're from Wichita. There was a period of time where it was like everybody was from North. Like everybody I interviewed, and like unintentionally, they just all happened to be from North. But it's interesting to see that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what have you done? Like, what did you study in school? Did you go to school? What have your career looked like?
Yeah, so my husband and I got married when we were pretty young. We were 19.
Okay.
And so I completed a whole 1 year of college. I actually really wanted to study cross-cultural ministry.
Okay.
I had every intention of going overseas and serving overseas, and then I met my husband and everything kind of changed. Sure. And so we actually started having kids right away, which was not what we expected. Yeah. But we both came from big families. Yeah. And so my husband is a pastor. Okay. And so I served a lot just in the role as pastor's wife and still do. And so a lot of time just raising my kids. So as far as career, mostly just raising kids, being a pastor's wife, things like that. So,
yeah, for sure. And that is a full-time gig. So my wife stays home with the kids, and it's a lot. That's a lot. So I think when I'm home, like on the weekends, or if I have a day off and I'm with the kids all day by myself, it's like I'm way more exhausted than I am for my work day. So kudos to you. Okay, so tell me a little bit about Care for Every Family. What is that?
Yeah, so Care for Every Family was a local kind of organic movement that happened in the faith community. And the whole goal of Care for Every Family, kind of long-term goal, is to reduce foster care. And how we do that is strategic, right? Because it's not just about getting more foster parents. Mm-hmm. It's not just about preventing kids from coming into foster care. It's the whole spectrum, right? It's prevention, it's intervention, and then it's closing the gap for youth that are aging out. And so we wanted to unite the entire faith community to come together under one umbrella to say, hey, we can do this, but only if we do it together. Mm-hmm. And so it's a coming together of the entire faith community, from churches to faith-based businesses to organizations that work in this space every day to say, hey, we're going to lay down our egos and our logos and actually come together and tackle this big, massive issue together.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love the mission of it. And I don't think I understood. So I go to City Life Church, and so they have a pretty good, or when I first started especially, they had a pretty good program, like trying to not push people, but like educate people and like let people know like foster care is a big issue. If you want to become parents, here's kind of how you can get involved. But then since I've been to Stand Together, like opened my mind to like, okay, this is a lot bigger than I thought. And then also just, you don't just need more foster parents. More foster parents are great. Like it's great that people have the heart to welcome kids into their home, but you need to go upstream of that. Like, why are they getting separated from their family in the first place? And so we'll talk a little bit about that. But a couple of statistics that I've seen are local foster care is up 50% over the last decade in Sedgwick County. And so there's more than 1,500 of the kind of the most vulnerable kids that are in the system right now. So it's headed in the wrong direction. It's not going down, it's going up. So can you talk a little bit more about that? Why is this?
Yeah. I think it's the result of a few different things. I think traditionally a lot of organizations and people in Wichita have been separated into silos. We have instead of coming together, we have put our head down and said, okay, what do we need to do to fix this problem? Instead of lifting our head up and saying, who's already working on this? And we actually have a record number of nonprofits here in Wichita. I'm not sure if everyone's aware of that, but we have a record number of nonprofits. And what that tells me is we're trying to solve the issue by ourselves sometime.
Right.
And instead of looking at who else is already working on this, how can I partner with them, and how can we come together and stay in our own lane, but work together and work seamlessly. And so I see it as a giant puzzle, and we all have our section of the puzzle, but then how do we connect those pieces of the puzzle together? And so I think we're headed in the right direction on that, but it's going to be a little bit before we see the fruit of that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that shows, one, people's heart are in the right places, right? You wouldn't have a record number. People aren't doing nonprofits for profit, obviously. So they're doing it because their heart is in the right place. But yeah, they're trying to do it. We're just duplicating effort a lot of different places when we could get, okay, they're doing something really well. How can I get on board and do my piece, my kind of comparative advantage with that? So
absolutely. We end up, with this scarcity mindset of like, oh no, like I figured it out, I need to. And again, not with the wrong heart, but just as a protective measure. And we don't have to do that. Right. We can work together and all do what we do really, really well.
Right. Absolutely. So can you just say what foster care is for people that don't understand? Like, I probably don't have a good definition, so I'll let the expert do it. But what is foster care, and like, how does a kid get into foster care in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. So foster care really is out of home placement is how you can best define that. So essentially there's a family that is struggling, and it's all sorts of measures, right? It could be addiction, it could be incarceration, it could be poverty, which I'll talk a little bit about here in a minute. It could be issues with parents' inability to cope. And that was something that actually really opened my eyes, that like sometimes parents are truly just unable to cope either with their own issues or with behaviors that their children are displaying. And so because they're not getting enough help, they end up actually relinquishing their own children, which was such an eye-opener to me that like that actually happens.
Right.
Like, it's not because they don't care about their kids, it's because they don't feel like they have what they need to be able to do that. Right. And so that was a huge eye-opener for me. But up to 70% of foster care entries are actually due to neglect linked with poverty and not abuse.
Right.
And that, again, was one of those really big eye-openers for me to say, wow, like abuse was the whole reason the child welfare system was created, was to intervene in those cases. Right. And that's now only representing 30% of foster care entries.
Wow.
Like, that's an issue, right? Like, that means we need more community-based support. So I guess holistically, it's children being separated from their families due to a slew of reasons, but we're finding the majority of these are preventable.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that stat blew my mind too. 70% are linked to neglect with poverty. And it's like, I don't know, criminalizing is not the word, but you're like punishing poverty basically. Like, you're punishing these people for being poor when they just need help. Like, they need help from everybody. But I think one of the graphics that I've seen, and I think it might be on the Care for Every Family website, but it's like you have the kid at the middle. It's like family, community, neighborhood, churches in there somewhere, and like government on the outside. Like, there is a place for that. Like, you need to protect these kids if they're getting abused. That's absolutely necessary. I don't think anyone would argue for that. Absolutely. But it's like the government shouldn't take the kids away just because the people are poor and can't provide for whatever that is. They might be working 3 jobs. Like, we don't know what the excuse is, but I think that blew my mind when I first heard that. Yeah,
absolutely. And we really only need the government to intervene in those types of cases. Otherwise, we really need more community-based support. And so we're really out to change the language from child welfare to child and family well-being, because that's what it's about. It's not just about that singular child. It's about the family that's around them, and they should be empowered to be the ones caring for the kids.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is it, and where does CarePortal fit into this?
Absolutely. So CarePortal, we explain it as a care sharing technology that drives action for local kids and families in crisis. And so much like ride sharing revolutionized transportation, we see CarePortal as revolutionizing care and the way we care for kids and families. And so it is at its most basic form just a platform, an online platform that takes teachers and caseworkers and healthcare providers, anyone who's working with vulnerable kids and families, they can post needs of those families onto the CarePortal platform. And then those needs go out to churches and businesses and individuals that are in that same area that the family resides in, and gives them the opportunity to step in. So I'll give you an example. We have a single mom who is working really hard to get her son back into her care. And the last step of the process is securing a twin bed. This to us seems so simple, but it's the difference between 3 months without her son or him getting back home. That's something that the community can solve. And so this need gets sent out. You know, a business says, yes, I'll stand up. Everything goes through the local church. And so again, it's that faith-based element where we're not just after meeting immediate physical needs, but we're about connecting people through meaningful connections and relationships. And those relationships are scaled through local churches.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, because it could be, I mean, if it's a one-off need, which sometimes that might be all they need. They might just need a twin bed and they're back and they don't need help again. But if they have that connection, if they do need help again, they have that kind of, how Joe describes it, like the social fabric helps hold everybody together, and kind of like a back net to catch them before they fall through and back into foster care or back into whatever that is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we see Care for Every Family as kind of the vision, the air game, if you will, and then CarePortal is the ground game. It's really how we accomplish that vision of uniting churches. And so through CarePortal, everyone has a place. Everyone in the community has a place. We just have to figure out what that is. And we actually get to leverage technology to streamline efforts. And it was really built off of 2 principles. There really isn't a lack of resources. As much as we like to talk about it, as much as the media likes to talk about, there's a lack of resources. There really isn't.
Right.
And there's not a lack of people who want to help. We hear that a lot too. Those things are not true. The missing thing is the connection between those 2 things.
Right.
And so that's really what CarePortal can provide.
I love that. And I've heard I can't remember where I read it. It was about, I think they call it like the contribution gap, but it's like 70% of people want to contribute in some way to the neighborhood, to their community, to their city, but only 30% are actually like achieving that goal of contributing, because they don't know where to start, or they don't know what level. They're like, oh, that's too much. I don't have time, or I don't have money. But it's, you could do anything. It could be time. It could be money. You might have a spare bed, like whatever that is. And I think the beauty of CarePortal too is that it is a vetted need. So it's not just like, I'm going to go put in that I need $200 for gas or something. These are actual needs that will make the difference, and hopefully keep these kids out of foster care if that's the direction it's headed. So
absolutely. Yep. Vetted needs. So people can feel good about what they're contributing. Businesses can say, hey, like, I want to help that specific family. I want to help that situation, and knowing that, like you said, that contribution is actually going to make a real difference, and you can actually measure that.
Right. Absolutely. So I think we talked about this a little bit before, just so I could kind of understand it a little more, but I think there's a few steps. So is it 4 steps you go through? Can you just walk through those?
Yeah. So it's first uncovering the need. So that's where we rely on our requesting agencies. So currently in Sedgwick County, we have 36 different requesting agencies, from school districts to pregnancy resource centers to child welfare agencies to neighborhood community centers, really anyone who's interacting with vulnerable kids. Uncover a need of a family that they're actively working with. That's where the vetting comes in. And then they go on to CarePortal and they type in the need. This takes maybe 5 minutes. So we're trying to make it as simple as possible, right? Because their jobs are hard. Everything about their job is hard. We want to make it simple. Right. So they type the need onto CarePortal. That's where CarePortal sends that need based on zip code of the family to the right people. And then as people see the need and can meet it, whether it's financially, whether it's physically, or whether they want to claim what's been given as a church and go and actually serve and deliver to the family, they do that. And then the community and the church partners together to ensure that that family is helped.
Okay, I love that. How does an organization get signed up. So I think last time we talked, I think in Wichita, there's 400-ish churches. Mm-hmm. So if you think about that, there's 1,500 kids in foster care, 400 churches. That's only a few kids per church that need help. And again, try to move upstream, help the families.
Yep.
But there's only 36 churches of the 400 that are currently signed up in the ballpark. So maybe 10% of the churches. So how does an organization get signed up, or an individual or a church get signed up to help start to provide care?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to careforeveryfamily.com, and that's going to take you to a slew of resources and everything from awareness to like what the data is showing right now to how you can activate. And so you can go there, quickly sign up as a church, as a business, or as an individual, or as a requesting agency, and figure out how you fit into that. And once you sign up, that sends an email to our team, and then we'll sit down with you and understand, what do you want to accomplish? How do you fit into that? We call it the secret sauce, right? It's like a lot of these things already exist in the community, but they're just not connected. Right. So if we can take and plug in technology to what already exists, that's going to open up a whole new world for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're an individual, since it all kind of goes through the local church, and I'm sure this is part of the secret sauce and that whole process, but like, let's say maybe I'm an individual that has resources, or I want to participate, but maybe I don't have like a local church. Do I have to go pick one, or do you kind of take care of, like, do I just meet a resource and then whatever the closest local church take care of the actual connection piece? How does that look?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go on to careportal.org, you can actually look at the interactive map. You can explore what the needs are. If you see one and you're like, ooh, I really want to give to that one's speaking to me, you go on there and you can fund that request, and then our system is going to automatically send an email to the closest local church and say, hey, this person, and you can remain anonymous if you want, or you can keep your name on there. This person wants to contribute this, and every CarePortal church gets a CarePortal debit card. And so that's how the funds get transferred, and it's instant, and everything's tracked. And so there's accountability, and there's certain things that can't be done with the card. So there's a lot of clarity and accountability, and so you can really feel good about those donations.
I love that. Over the last year, I think it's the total number of like requests that have been input or met has 2 or 3x'd, which is amazing. So more people are starting to use it, and still only a fraction of people are providing. So that's amazing. About 88% of the needs are met. What kind of needs are not met typically? Are they bigger needs? And then can you participate, like, I don't know, maybe you need like a queen size bed or something, and I can't provide the whole thing. Can I do a partial need meet? And what does that look like? Yeah,
absolutely. So yes, you can, people can get on, and I think you can give as little as $10. Okay. So you can say, I can't contribute much, but I can give $10 to this need. And next thing you know, 10 other people give $10. And so again, it's that care sharing model where like the shared responsibility for the well-being of families. And so, yes, you can absolutely contribute just partial. And I'm sorry, I forgot what your first question was.
Oh boy, I probably did too. I pair those questions up and then I kind of forget. But I guess what type of, of like the 10% or so that of the needs that aren't met, what does that look like typically?
Yeah, those likely are higher financial dollar requests. A lot of times families that are on the brink, it's very shameful sometimes to ask for help. Sure. And you may not trust people. And so sometimes they're racking up $1,500, $2,000 bills on, their electric or their water, before they go, okay, it's about to get shut off. And I really need help. Yes. So sometimes those, although I say that, and then I say that to some of our agencies, and then we get on there and one like $2,000 one has been met by one person. And so I'm like, okay, I don't know. You just truly never know who's going to be out there. But yes, of the ones that don't get met, those are typically, or sometimes needs get put on there. And after a couple days, if they haven't gotten met, they'll have gotten met elsewhere. And so they'll end up
might not be through CarePortal. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. You mentioned something about 50 and 5. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, so there's a statistic out there that says 50% of all kids in foster care nationwide reside in 5% of the counties. And Sedgwick County is in that 5%. And so, yeah, just think about that for a minute. Let that sink in. Like, we're up there with, places that people would normally think of, like LA, Chicago,
big
Detroit.
cities.
Yeah. The really big ones. But Sedgwick County per capita is third in the nation.
Wow.
For kids in foster care per capita. So very, very eye-opening.
That is eye-opening. Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that, because we have this like condensed, centralized poverty. And so people on the outskirts, typically, they don't see that.
Right.
They don't interact with that. And so a lot of people are like, no, not my city.
Yeah, that's not true. Yeah.
That's not true. It is,
Right.
So it's time we wake up to that and realize, okay, we do have a problem. And that's the first step in understanding this whole thing. Yeah,
for sure. That reminds me of, I remember back, this is a completely different issue, but I think I was maybe a freshman in college or something, like 2011, 2012. And a statistic I saw was we were like in the top 5 for human trafficking or something in Wichita. And I was like, there's no way. I grew up in Andover, so like I'm completely like removed from that. And so, but it was like, oh, we really are. And it makes sense from like a geographic perspective. We're in the middle of the country with the highways intersecting. But it blew my mind. Like, there's no way. Wichita is just like cute little city that like, there's no way we have this bad stuff happen. But there's human trafficking, there's foster care issues. There's a lot of different issues that I think, like you said, I think the first thing is we realize that there is a problem and that we can help close that gap. Maybe not the whole thing. We're not going to close a 1,500 kid gap, but we can help a little bit. So
absolutely,
I think that's important.
Absolutely.
Youth aging out. You mentioned that a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about that? I think, again, this is another one of those things that I never thought about before I started at Stand Together, and now I hear youth aging out a lot. Can you talk a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So statistically, 50% of kids that come into care will either end up going back home to their biological family or get adopted by kinship home, which is just family, or there can be non-relative kin. So essentially you knew that person before you came into foster care. But the reality is once you hit 10 and up, the likelihood of you getting adopted is much lower, unfortunately. And so a lot of these kids end up just cycling through placements until they turn 18. And once they turn about 16, they start working an independent living plan, trying to get them ready to be out on their own without somebody. And so, I mean, just think about that for a moment. I know when I was 18, there was so much I didn't know. Yeah. And, I didn't grow up in foster care. And so I can't even imagine not having a family or not having a support system around me. And honestly, just being jaded by the system and not wanting anything to do with them anymore. And so I can't remember the statistic offhand, but there is such a high number of kids that age out into homelessness, or within like the first 6 months are in homelessness. And it's just this generational.
Whatever that statistic is, I've seen it. It's ridiculous. It's way too high.
It's way too high.
Another one of those ones that I'm like, there's no way.
Yeah.
But
And then the cycle continues, because then they're more likely to have kids who go into foster care, and you see how this pattern just continues on and continues on until someone, a mentor, some kids don't want a family and they don't want to be adopted, and that's hard for people to hear because they've been hurt so many times. Maybe it's just a mentor. Maybe it's just, again, a church that kind of pseudo adopts them, right? Like to just walk alongside them and be there as a support.
Yeah, for sure. And then to the point about the church adopting, if you're interested in a story about that, go Google Possum Trot. And I think that's a good film that kind of encapsulates that. But I don't know if you want to talk about that for a minute. I don't actually know the story super well, but.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually had Bishop Martin. So Bishop W.C. Martin and his wife, Donna, live in a tiny town called Possum Trot, Texas. nobody's ever heard of it until this movie came out. So their tiny church, I don't know, it was a couple decades ago, learned about the crisis and how many kids were sleeping in offices and didn't have homes. And so they rallied their church, and 77 children ended up being adopted by people in their church. And mind you, again, very tiny church.
Right.
And they didn't have a lot of the resources themselves. They were also, living very impoverished,
Right.
and didn't have the resources, but they rallied together. And so this movie is called Sound of Hope. And Bishop Martin actually came and helped us launch Care for Every Family at the Wichita Prayer Breakfast, not this last May, but the May before. And so he is such a powerhouse and such an advocate. And now this film has been released all over the world, globally. The global footprint now is amazing. And we want to be very clear that, like, we're not asking churches to be, their church was called Bennett Chapel. We're not looking to see more Bennett Chapels. We don't need one church trying to do it all. It's amazing what God did through them, but we need every church doing a little, every church doing something, every church doing their part. And so this story is helping inspire churches to come together, to embrace the hard, and to do it because it's a reflection of what God did for us.
Yeah, I love everything about that. Is there anything we missed about CarePortal or Care for Every Family?
Yeah, I think I also want to touch on, because a lot of people end up missing this. A lot of people are like, why foster care? Like, of all the issues in our city, in our country, why foster care? And I want to talk just for a moment about why foster care. So a lot of people don't realize, but foster care really is ground zero for many of our nation's most troubling social outcomes. You think about homelessness, you think about sex trafficking, you think about incarceration and all the things that come along with that. So many of those kids, between 70 to 90% of kids in those, or adults in those situations, spent time in foster care. And so if we care about homelessness, if we care about incarceration and reentry, if we care about sex trafficking, we have to care about foster care. We have to look at what's feeding into foster care. We have to care about these things. This is our best chance at seeing true social change. Just think about, if we spend our time now, what we're doing today, this year, is going to change generations to come with these negative social outcomes. So I really want people to understand that it's all connected, but ground zero is foster care. And if we want to see change, that's where we have to start.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're saying ground zero, and then I'm also like picturing like a waterfall. It's like foster care is here, but it's like if you don't take care of the families, then foster care becomes an issue that leads to all these other issues. Absolutely. But if we just kind of empower everybody with the tools and the relationships that you can just meet between the churches and the people, or whoever that is, and from the bottom up, if everybody in Wichita just says a little bit, every church just says a little bit, Absolutely. The problem goes away probably fairly quickly. If we all just kind of do a little bit, and then becomes, instead of 1,500 kids, there might be a smaller number of foster care kids who we can serve better. And then in those cases of neglect by abuse or whatever else, they actually need foster care. Yeah, I think, we just got to get on top of it and keep working.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Our tagline is connection changes everything. And we really believe that with every fiber of our being, because that's what it's all about. We were all born with this innate need for connection and need for community and need for each other. And along the way, we've lost so much of that. And so we really just want to empower neighbor to see neighbor, and neighbor to serve neighbor, and have that mutual benefit, right? Like, it's not just about, I'm going to go and serve this person. I can tell you from experience, I've gotten so much more out of it, and out of the listening to stories and building connection than I've ever given in return.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing everything about CarePortal. That's really exciting. Hopefully we can get a few more people signed up on there to keep helping. I have a couple just questions to kind of wrap up that are kind of unrelated, just Wichita-based questions.
Yeah.
But what is your favorite part of Wichita? or like a hidden gem in Wichita that you like?
Oh my goodness. I don't know if it's a hidden gem, but our family just absolutely loves Exploration Place. That is a place that we frequent way often, and I'm so excited to see all the amazing things that are to come. You know, I feel like it's kind of flown under the radar in some respects, and now they're like, hey, like we're here, like we're doing something new. And so again, I'm not sure if it's a hidden gem, but our family loves going to Exploration Place.
I love
amazing.
it. Yeah, and the new playscape, the little yellow or big yellow rocket is up now. You can see it from the road, and I love it too because every time you go, there's usually something new. Like they have the traveling exhibits last a few months at a time, or the playscapes there. They're always doing something fun, or even hosting adult events. Like there's Halloween events, or like Death by Chocolate fundraisers. There's a lot of fun stuff there.
Yeah,
it's like
absolutely.
Great choice. Is there something you wish Wichita had that it doesn't, or what would you improve about Wichita besides foster care?
That's a great question. Is there something I would improve? Honestly, I know it sounds so cliche, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head other than like, I don't know, maybe some newer restaurants. You know, there's like certain things like, I don't know, everyone always talks about Cheesecake Factory and bringing it here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a running joke.
You know, it's a running joke. So, I don't know, off the top of my head, I can just think about, you know, some sillier things like that. But honestly, I really do love Wichita. I really do. It's home, and I think there's so much that we're continuing to see improve and more people coming together. And I just can't wait to see like 3-5 years from now what it looks like.
Absolutely. Well, you just answered my last question. It was, what does Wichita mean to you? But I appreciate it. But Sadie, thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely.
One more time, where can people sign up for CarePortal or learn more about CarePortal?
Yeah, so you can go to careforeveryfamily.com and explore data, resources, and activate right then and there.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks, Landon.